from ESPN, Get Up, and so much more. Our friend Dan Orlovsky back here on the program. How are you, Dan?
What's going on, boss man? I'm doing absolutely fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Did I see in the commercial break you and Damian Woody tweeting about being on a Peloton bike? Did I see that, Dan?
Man, I just got off the Iron Horse. It was a really impressive performance, if I may say so myself.
Okay,
so,
very good.
I saw Woody wants to get on, so I'd love to kick his teeth in on that too.
Okay, so are you putting on your Peloton profile all the other organizations that you might want to broadcast for outside of ESPN, or that's just somebody else that's fake?
Yeah, that would go over really well with Jimmy Pete Carroll at ESPN would be my guess.
Yeah. Well, you would be KJ Orlovsky, right? That's the way it would be.
Yeah, my agents, David Coonan and Matt Olson at CAA would be on me in 10 seconds. Delete that, take that down.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about, I guess, the here and now, Dan Orlovsky, because I was feeling a little bit of heat the other day, and I was wondering, is it just hotter outside? Or is that Dan Orlovsky's take that the Seahawks should fire Pete Carroll if he stands in Russ Wilson's way? Could that have been it, Dan, the other day?
No, that was an accurate feeling of mine. Here's why I stand on the Russell Wilson situation.
Okay.
It's one of two things. I don't think this is football related. I don't think Russell's that bent out of shape of his offensive line or whatnot. I think this is either that he's unhappy playing with a defensive-minded coach that, halfway through the season or 10 games through the season last year decided, okay, we got to run the ball a little bit more. And, Russ throwing it around a lot is slowing down for us a little bit. He's unhappy doing that, and it's about that relationship. Or this is about 20 years from now, Russell Wilson, and Russell's brand and legacy and trying to become the NFL's Magic Johnson, so to speak, when it comes to ex-player businessman. And the Seattle Seahawks got to figure out which one it is. Because if it's about Russell Wilson's brand 20 years from now, his mind is already made up. It's done. No, one more year in Seattle is not going to change that. So I would say in that moment, you got to figure out a way to move him now because his star is the brightest. Get as much as you can from him from a desperate organization. If it's about Pete, if Russell's like, no, I have no desire to leave Seattle. I want to play here forever. And this is about being unhappy with the style of the organization or the brand of football, then you got to sit there and go, well, is it repairable between those two guys? And if it's not, are you going to give up Russell Wilson to keep Pete Carroll? I would not.
Okay, so let's parse this a little bit because you're also perfect to ask about this. Former quarterback who also is outstanding at watching tape and communicating about it. Russ, the 397 sacks, all the offensive line, or is Russ not thrown on time? Or what would Pete Carroll say about all those sacks that have been suffered by the quarterback, and whether it's the system or the offensive line or a team effort, if you will, on that front?
Yeah,
Dan.
Some of them are on Russell. There's no question about it. 60-40 offensive line to Russell. Obviously it takes everybody. Receivers, wrong route, poor communication, all that stuff. But I've heard that get said over the past couple weeks that Russell owns some of them because of his style of football. And I've kept my mouth quiet on it because I feel like when people say that, I go, well, no, duh. But that's why he's Russell Wilson. If everybody wants him to play this efficient brand of football and get it out on time or something like that, he's not going to be who he has over the last 9 years. Like, it's a give or take. If you want the special Russell, if you want the great Russell, if you want the guy that over the last decade has been one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football, you're going to have to take some of that stuff. He can't become special. He can't be special without some of the negative aspect of it. And that's just the style of football he plays. So to say, well, Russell shouldn't hold on to the ball that long, well, then you're going to get a 4-yard completion, and anybody can do that.
So again, I just don't know. I think what you just your first answer, where if it is about Russell down the road and setting himself up for down the road, I agree with you. His mind will have to be made up, and then you have to figure out how you get something for him. The thing is with Pete Carroll, he's turning 70 this fall. I can't imagine he'd throw his hands up, right? And say, well, that's the end of that. I can't imagine that this relationship is going to end in divorce. this summer. I don't feel it. I don't have that spidey sense, Dan. And and Pete's smart enough to also know, how to navigate this. Although that athletic story, the thing that leapt out at me was, that there could absolutely be a moment in time on planet Earth where, with all due respect to Brian Schottenheimer, he feels that he's got the ability to tell Russell, forget it, get out of the room, or say something to make him storm out of it. There's just a lot of confusion for me here, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's three parts to that for me.
Okay.
Number one, it begins with, what could you get for him? I think that's a fair question to ask. If the Chicago Bears, who need a absolute dude at the position, are going to throw you 3 or 4 first-rounders, then it becomes a very real consideration, as great as Russell is. I think the second thing is, what is their opinion on somebody in the draft? They may love a guy like Trey Lance.
Right.
They may love him and go, well, we love Trey Lance. We think he's going to fall somewhere between 10 and 15. If we get 3 or 4 first-round picks, maybe we could package them to go up and get Trey Lance. And the third thing would be this, and I've said this a couple times now. Pete and John Schneider have 2 experiences in their time together in Seattle. One, early on, when Russell was cheap and everyone around him was really good and well paid, and they won the Super Bowl. And then one, when they decided to pay Russell, as they should have, top dollar, because he earned it and he's that good. And they've struggled to replicate that success. They may sit back and go, you know what? We tried it the other way. We tried to do it that way. It is really, really, really hard, and we have one of the best guys. Let's go back to the other way. And I think those are all layers that are part of this conversation for Seattle.
Dan Orlovsky here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what is the answer with them staying together? If Dan Orlovsky, consultant, could be hired by Seattle, but what is the offensive mix here? Because you've got it. To me, DK Metcalf has the ability to wind up number one in the entire NFL. Like he we just saw that leap forward. And Lockett is phenomenal, and they do have a running game that they wisely employ, from time to time. What is the answer to let Russ cook? I mean, what do we got here, Dan? Because I don't think this is going to be a divorce. I just don't. I don't feel it.
Yeah. So it starts with Seth Walder, their new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. Excuse me, Shane. So I was with Shane Waldron 3 years ago in LA when he was really our tight ends coach with the Rams. And you could see very much so observant, really paying attention to Sean and Matt LaFleur and those conversations and whatnot. So it starts with him. What's his philosophy? What's his belief with how to take Russell to the next step, so to speak, when it comes to taking less hits, being less on the run? And then I think it's looking at all of Russell's plays and going, okay, the 80% of the plays that we have, Russell, that you play within the structure of the offense, and the structure of the offense sometimes gets dumbed down for people. Just because we say structure of the offense doesn't mean it's dink and dunk. Doesn't mean it's this boring elementary passing game. It just means within the structure of everybody tied together. Hey, this is a shot play where we're going to roll you out and set you up in between the middle of the field and the hash 14 yards deep, and we're going to try to push the ball 60 yards downfield. If it's not there, you're going to find 2 to 3 to a check down or an outlet. That it's still within structure of play. So 80% of those plays, Russell, do we believe that we can play top 3 positional football and do that? Yes. All right. So then let's look at the other 20%. Why do they happen? Is it because our offensive line is terrible and we're asking them too much in their pass protection schemes? Are you bad at communicating at the line of scrimmage? Do you try to do too much? Is it situational football when it's a one-score? All those things get tied into trying to figure out, because, Rich, it really comes down to 3 to 5 plays a game. 3 to 5 plays a game where if you go, you get rid of that ball a second sooner, or we got to build in a hot route for you a little bit more, or you know what, our center can't do this. We got to stop asking him to do that. That is all entailing of trying to figure out how to get him happier, quote unquote, on the football field.
And I think we boiled it down to the crux of the matter, Dan. It seems like those 3 to 5 plays is where Russ and Pete have a difference of opinion on what to do in those 3 to 5 plays, right? And and if those 3 to 5 plays that are a difference of opinion, and Russ does what he wants to do and turns the ball over, that's when Pete's like, screw it. That's it. I mean, we're going to tap out here on all that business, and we're going to get back to basics, and we're going to try and win football games that way. That's it.
The last thing I would throw into that, Rich, is this: that is not just an offensive identity. You can't do like I said this about when Cam went to New England this past year with Josh McDaniels. Yes, you want to do those things as an offense, and that might help you play better or more efficient or error-free on offense, but does it play winning football? You know, like winning football is connected to what your defense is. Sometimes your defense isn't good enough, so you can't do that as a quarterback. Like, I do believe Russell got to a point last year. I said this on NFL Live many times. Russell sits there and goes, I got to score 35 a game. I'm not just trying to play good. I have to play to win. And unless you have the complementary aspect of the football team, that philosophy on offense doesn't mean it's going to equal wins. That's the real kind of reaching point or whatever that those two have to kind of get to an agreement on.
A few more minutes of smart football talk with Dan Orlovsky, NFL Live, Get Up, NFL and college football analyst from the worldwide leader in sports. Perfect guy also to ask about Stafford in Los Angeles. Knowing Stafford, knowing what he can do, knowing the Rams, knowing McVay, knowing what they think he can do. How is this marriage going to work, do you think?
Fantastic. I put them as the third team to beat in the NFC, and there's still question marks with the Bucs and the Packers, who are going to be 1-2 with some of their free agents. I'll say this, the style of offense, that first, the multitudes of play-action pass, the hard ball, which is like that quick fake, downhill, and trying to get like the 12, 15-yard chunk throws that you got to throw into small windows, obviously perfect for Matthew Stafford's skill set, both ball handling and arm strength-wise. And then the big ball play action where you're going a little bit more drawn-out fake and you're trying to really get those big throws down the field. That's what that offense missed last year. His skill set, his athleticism, his strong arm is going to be allowed to do that. They've got to add one more speed piece on the outside. I do believe that, a wide receiver to kind of take off the top of that coverage. So it's going to help their play-action game. Number two, he's going to increase their drop-back game. Sometimes the play-action pass just doesn't work. Sometimes the defenses are going to commit to stopping that rather than the run or whatnot. And so you got to be able to play play-action or drop-back football. And that's not something that Jared did well, that Matthew Stafford can. So Sean McVay's got a comfort level knowing, all right, this guy can cut apart a defense because he's just so good, so smart, seen so much. And then the last thing is he can throw guys open better than Jared. You know, because when you have talent, vision, you see colors, you see windows, you can make those sidearm throws a little bit more. That's going to help. And so it's a fantastic scheme fit, style of play fit. I'd say this, Matthew Stafford has had a top 10 defense in his NFL career one time. He went 11-5 that year. He's never had a top 10 run game, ever. The Rams averaged 136 yards per game on the ground last year. Matthew Stafford's best season is like 89 or something like that. Or that's what he averaged last year. His best season is like 101. So he's never had a top 10 defense in a top 10 run game, ever. Never been in this environment. I think for those two reasons, we will see the best version we've ever seen of Matthew Stafford with the Rams.
And Dan Orlovsky, I guess before I let you go, this isn't just for me because I'm a Jet fan, but the Jets do have a lot to say about the next couple of months and how that domino effect can affect everybody. If they keep Darnold, that means they might trade the second overall pick. If they use the second overall pick on a quarterback, that makes Darnold available for somebody else, or the ultimate mother load if they somehow convince the Texans to realize what the rest of the free world is currently realizing, that they wind up with Watson. What do you think the Jets wind up doing over the next 7 weeks that affects the rest of the NFL? Dan Orlovsky.
Well, as I sit here now, March 2nd, I think they'll keep Sam Darnold and trade the second pick. I think what they'll do is keep Sam Darnold and make everyone think that they are absolutely head over heels in love with Zach Wilson to force a team to go get him. Candidly, I have not studied Zach Wilson, every snap of Zach Wilson. I've seen a couple games. I'm on Fields right now, getting to Zach Wilson fourth in the list. So I'm intrigued by him. I'm intrigued by Fields as well. I think they both have some really interesting traits, but I'd just say this. Be super cautious on passing up on a really talented player because he had an absolute disaster around him. He's cut from the right stuff, Sam Darnold. He's made from the right mentality. He's still incredibly talented and young. And I just believe that the Jets coaching staff, the timing of when they went to New York, they did not study those young kids yet. So them choosing the Jets over all those other options, I think tells us what the coaching staff believes of Sam Darnold. As of right now, I think they'll keep him.
So the Darnold that we evaluated in USC and could possibly see still exists based on the dumpster fire that frequently surrounded him over the first 3 years of his career. You think that fits the Shanahan system that's being brought over by Robert Saleh?
Unquestionably. That is the perfect system for Sam Darnold. It's a perfect system for a lot of quarterbacks.
Sure.
It's a very friendly system. But I think it's a really, really good fit. I always say this, we should never say fit. Can the player excel? And I think Sam Darnold can excel in that offense.
Dan, thanks for the time. Look for my call, please. Keep looking for it.
You're the best, brother.
Right
Thank
back
you.
at you. That's Dan Orlovsky. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.